Welcome to The Critique.
Glad to be here.
So today we're looking at a piece analyzing the recent conservative conflicts, really zeroing in on Matt Walsh's stance on loyalty after Charlie Kirk's assassination.
Right.
Let's just dive right into the feedback, starting with how the arguments are framed.
Sounds good.
I mean, the piece definitely has passion. You feel the author's conviction about loyalty trumping these, internal squabbles.
Yeah, it really hammers home Walsh's view that things like the James Lindsay feud or the arguments over that Young Republicans group chat are basically just distractions.
Or worse, left-wing tactics, as he puts it, designed to force people into denunciations. Okay, but here's the first point we wanted to raise. The material effectively champions loyalty as the highest virtue, but it minimizes the principal basis of the opposing viewpoints, risking an oversimplified narrative of treachery versus honor.
Exactly. That's the core issue with this first point.
So you're saying if the goal is to really prove Walsh's loyalty is the right call, maybe downplaying the critics' actual points weakens that defense? Like you need to beat their best argument, not a straw man.
Precisely. The weakness here is that when you frame people like James Lindsay or, Ben Shapiro as just having pity parties or using moral blackmail, you miss a real chance.
A chance to do what exactly?
To show how Walsh's loyalty principle actually stacks up against, legitimate internal ideological worries. Concerns about maybe certain rhetoric crossing a line or specific extremist elements.
Okay. So it's not just about petty fights. There might be actual substance to the criticism that needs addressing.
There might be. And by acknowledging that substance, even if you ultimately dismiss it, you make Walsh's focus on loyalty seem like a harder, more considered choice, not just brushing off annoyances.
Okay, so the suggestion is to strengthen the main argument. You do that by more deeply acknowledging those specific ideological red lines critics are drawing?
Right. Acknowledge them, and then explain why loyalty still takes precedence in this specific high-stakes context.
So it shows the principle was actually tested against something serious, not just, like you said, personal beefs.
Yeah, exactly. It makes the defense much more robust. Think of it like intellectual stress testing.
Okay, can you give a concrete example? How would that look in the text without getting, totally bogged down in the weeds of their argument?
Sure. Take the James Lindsay fight. Instead of just saying Lindsay criticized him, you'd explicitly state the line Lindsay drew.
Which was?
The accusation about glazing Fuentes, right? Over how the blame for the Groper assassin thing was handled. That's the specific moral point Lindsay was making.
Okay.
So you state that clearly. Then you articulate the host's or Walsh's counter-argument, why that specific line, maybe concerning in a vacuum, isn't worth breaking ranks over right now.
Because of the bigger context? The assassination? The threats?
Exactly. The Virginia AG candidate calling for violence, those awful make assassinations great against shirts. You put the internal ideological line directly against the external existential threat. Let the reader weigh them.
Got it. That really does clarify the stakes. It frames it as a difficult choice, not an obvious one.
And you could do the same with the Ben Shapiro pushback on the Young Republicans chat.
Right, instead of just focusing on Walsh comparing it to biological reality.
Briefly state Shapiro's principle, the need to police toxic rhetoric within the movement to maintain standards.
Acknowledge that's a valid concern in principle.
Yes, and then pivot back hard to why Walsh's focus on the immediate, violent external threat is, in this view, the more urgent moral and strategic priority. It's about triage, really.
Choosing the main battle. Okay, that makes the argument feel much more grounded and less dismissive.
It shows Walsh isn't blind to the internal issues. He's just prioritizing, fighting the fire closest to the house, you could say, even if the plumbing needs fixing too.
Right. Okay, that's a really strong, actionable point on the argument itself. Now, let's pivot a bit. Let's talk about the structure, the flow of the piece.
Yeah, the architecture.
It starts incredibly strong, right? The assassination is this huge emotional catalyst.
Oh, absolutely. It sets everything in motion. You get the shock, then Walsh's September 12th post demanding unity, and bang, the immediate clash with Lindsay.
It defines the battle lines instant. Walsh says, anyone punching right now is irrelevant. The tension is palpable.
It is. The pacing is really effective there. You feel the urgency. But then
we hit the second major critique point. The material's pacing and structure are critically undermined by the placement of the lengthy central commercial section,
which significantly reduces the intensity established by that tragic catalytic event.
Bingo, that's exactly it.
You have this incredibly tight, urgent narrative thread. Tragedy, unity call, immediate betrayal, Walsh drawing a line. It's gripping.
And then suddenly we're hearing all about, academic programs at GCU and Good Ranchers meat boxes in quite some detail.
Which, look, sponsors are necessary, but the placement here.
It just kills the momentum stone dead. It's not a pause. It feels like hitting a wall.
Yeah, and by the time you get back to the actual conflict, the Politico story, the Young Republicans chat, the Shapiro angle, the initial sense of crisis, the heat from the assassination, it's just
cooled off. It feels less critical, less immediate. The weakness is basically putting the ad break right in the middle of the rising action. It should feel like an act break, not an interruption.
Okay, so the suggestion is pretty straightforward then, structurally?
Yeah, it's about strategic placement. Move that long break so it functions as a clear chapter division. Separate the initial emotional explosion from the later, more political fallout.
Okay, how would that look practically?
Well, you'd make sure that the first chunk, everything from the assassination through Walsh's September post, the Lindsay fight, up to Walsh's initial podcast where he basically says, I'm done with these people, make sure that whole sequence concludes before you hit the ads.
Give that first wave a sense of closure.
Exactly. Let that intense emotional arc complete itself.
Then how do you pick it back up after the break without it feeling disjointed?
You reintroduce the conflict, but signal it's a new phase. A good way might be to use the Politico story about the Young Republicans group chat as the starting point for the second act, right after the break.
Ah, so the break separates the immediate personal feud from the wider political media storm.
Precisely. It creates a new starting pistol, a second wave of controversy. It resets the stakes and keeps the energy up for the discussion about Shapiro and the broader implications. It makes the whole thing feel like it has sustained momentum.
Okay, yeah, that structural change seems like it would make a huge difference to the overall impact and tension.
Definitely. Pacing is everything with this kind of narrative.
All right, let's move to the third main point. This one's about the use of personal context from the host.
Right, and let's be clear, some of it works really well.
Yeah, the piece uses personal stories effectively to back up the loyalty principle, like the host defending Candace Owens, calling her a big sister.
Or refusing to attack Ben Shapiro, saying he was nothing but kind and supportive. That lands.
Personal context enhances credibility. Refining the introduction of the host's direct involvement ensures the focus remains squarely on the universally applicable principles of loyalty demonstrated by Walsh, Kelly, and Kirk.
So the risk is that sometimes the personal stuff takes over a bit too much?
Yeah, it can dilute the focus slightly. The weakness is when the piece slows down to unpack, let's say, more minor personal conflicts that need a lot of setup for the listener to even understand.
Like what, for instance?
Like, the detailed explanation of the host's history or lack thereof. With James Lindsay, I've never spoken to him, but he attacks me anyway. Or spending time speculating about a subtweet from Seth Dillon.
Okay, I see. Those bits, while maybe factually relevant to the host's experience, might pull the listener away from Walsh and the core argument about his loyalty dilemma.
Exactly. It momentarily shifts the spotlight from the main subject, Walsh, Kelly, Kirk, facing this pressure, onto the host's own sort of parallel feuds, which might not be as universally resonant.
Right. So the suggestion isn't to remove personal context entirely, but to streamline it.
Streamline it, yes. Make sure every personal aside functions purely and directly as evidence for the main thesis about loyalty under fire. Avoid letting them become side stories that need their own detailed exposition.
So keep the really punchy stuff, like the Shapiro example, he was kind, so I won't attack him. That's direct proof of the principle.
Absolutely. Keep that. And for something like the Lindsay situation, instead of the whole never spoken to him backstory,
just frame it concisely?
Yeah, frame the host's defense of Candace Owens, the big sister part, as the direct reason for the criticism received. Then immediately link it back. You could say something like, my own stance is being attacked because I refuse to ditch a friend, which shows exactly the kind of loyalty pressure Walsh and Kelly are dealing with.
Ah, okay. Connects it right back to the main fig without the detour.
Exactly. It keeps the focus tight, and it ensures that the really powerful universal analogies get the spotlight they deserve.
You mean like Megyn Kelly's line about,
yeah, the BLM folks trying to make you raise your fist analogy. That's incredibly potent.
Or Charlie Kirk's own comments about not giving in to moral blackmail.
Those resonate far beyond this specific conservative fight, right? They touch on broader themes of integrity and pressure, Those are the elements that elevate the piece.
So keep the personal sharp and tied directly to the main argument, and let those big, universal analogies carry the philosophical weight.
That's the idea. It ensures the piece connects on multiple levels, both personal and principled.
Okay, this has been really insightful. I think these points offer a clear path to making an already passionate piece even more impactful. Should we quickly recap the main actionables?
Let's do it. 3 key takeaways.
Okay, first,
strengthen that core defense of loyalty. Don't just dismiss the critics. Acknowledge the specific ideological lines they're drawing, like with Lindsay or Shapiro, and then explain why loyalty overrides those concerns in this context. Tackle their strongest point.
Got it. Makes the argument tough. Second,
fix the pacing and structure. Move that big ad break. Put it between the initial emotional fallout post-assassination and the later political storm kicked up by the Politico story. Create distinct acts to maintain urgency.
Right. Treat it like a chapter break, not an interruption. And third,
calibrate the personal context. Keep the powerful examples, but make sure they always circle back immediately to reinforce the main principle about loyalty under pressure, as seen with Walsh, Kelly, and Kirk. Trim the side stories that require too much setup.
focus on how the host's experience illustrates the core dilemma.
Exactly. Keep the lens tight on the central theme.
Fantastic. Look, we really appreciated the energy and the detailed recounting in this. It's powerful stuff.
It really is, and these suggestions are just about honing that power, making sure it hits as hard as possible.
So, please, take these ideas, rework the material, and we'd genuinely love to see it again. Feel free to submit the revised version for another look down the line.
Yeah, definitely keep refining. Good work.